Welcome, everybody, to another Microsoft Unboxed pod. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by.
David Allen, this is number 47. We are
Correct.
getting old. We are getting old, but I'm not going to say we're getting any wiser.
Yeah, and I also want to make a correction. I said 47 last week because I'm getting old. It was actually 46, obviously. So if you're scratching your head chronologically, I messed up, said the wrong episode, but I think I marked it correctly in the title. So it should, on whatever platform you're listening to, it should be in the correct order. If you are pedantic that way, I just like to be correct on things I can and have the ability to be on. With that being said, we had a sort of semi-slow week for Microsoft. There wasn't a ton of news. There was news about its competitors that basically kind of sucked all the oxygen out of the room, and we will be talking about that news. Let me give you kind of a glimpse on what we're going to be discussing. PlayStation State of Play. We're going to be going over some of the highlights from that. Microsoft is finally saying goodbye to the last remnants of HoloLens, and we'll explain what that has to do with the Army and its new contracted partner. We'll be talking about an outage Sony had that lasted well over 18 hours, which is interesting, and the silence for most of that time that Sony kind of went under. They pled the fifth when people were like, "What's going on?" We'll also be talking about a report from a company called Take Two, which does its own metrics based on gameplays and downloads, and it gives us a glimpse of how poorly the Xbox Series consoles are doing in comparison to the PlayStation, and basically overall in the market in general. We'll also be talking about Google I/O and how Google developers will now, or both Google developers and Microsoft developers will have to choose which conference they go to versus being able to kind of tell their departments, "Hey, I need to go to both, and can you schedule them about a month apart?" We'll also be talking about Copilot getting a voice feature to compete with, I believe, Google's Gemini Advanced or whatever version they're using on the new Galaxy phones or whatnot. I see this as unfortunately a bad move, but I'll explain why a little bit later. I'm done talking. I'm gonna let my host kind of jump into our first story. David, tell people what we're talking about.
Well, let's see what we have. We've got Microsoft. Let's see. I have actually pulled up the wrong headlines. Folks, would you look at me? Let's see. Let's go right down here to the correct one. All right. The first headline that I have, it kind of goes off the piggyback of the PlayStation outage. So I'm kind of going to combine two into one here, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Saturday, last Saturday, a week ago, let's see, a week ago would have been what? February the 8th. The PlayStation Network disappeared. Let's call it what it is. It went out, went away, was gone. People couldn't log into their consoles. People couldn't join their multiplayer games. The single player games require
Dang
you
it,
to.
Xbox. Oh, wait. Oh, no, we're not blaming Xbox for this one. We're blaming Sony.
No, we're not
Okay.
going to blame Xbox for this one.
Yeah, I feel
You
like
know,
that's what happens.
you couldn't basically do anything. So basically, you had paperweights. Those 5, 6, 700. If you bought a PlayStation Pro, you had a $700 paperweight. Basically, couldn't do anything with it. Well, normally when these things happen, Xbox, at least I can comment on and say that they generally try to comment on what's going on. But gamers went roughly 18 hours without necessarily knowing, was it DDoSed? Was it hacked? Was there a data breach? Did somebody knock the rack over and it fell in the ocean? Um, Nobody knew. And Sony really still hasn't come out and said, look, this is what happened. We're still guessing. We know that the PlayStation Plus members got 5 days of extended access for what that's worth. You got 5 days of extended access for the outage, but it kind of left gamers wondering, I'm gonna call, what the hell? You know, what was going on at Sony? And I wrote a little piece on the article. It's kind of a factual editorial type piece of it. Kind of makes you think. As Kareem mentioned, we're older. We played Nintendo. We played the first Xbox to where you just put the game in, push the power button, and you played. You had your little save cards, and you know saved your game on the memory card, and you took it to your friend's house. You put the game in, and you played. Well, now, after we have found out that cloud has to be functional for your console to work, there is that dependence there. And you can say that dependence goes all the way back to your internet connection if you wanted to. So, to gamers, I have a question, and I'll let my co-host answer this too. Should games automatically, for those that are able, for those that have offline modes, campaigns, Call of Duty campaigns, Starfield campaigns, for those that have campaign modes built in, should we have an option to where we don't have to phone home and talk to those servers so we can still play our game?
Yeah. What was that guy's name? They got fired from Microsoft for telling the guys in the submarine to F off because we were going to move towards online DRM only access. Everything was going to be online. Everything was going to be better. And then, ironically, PlayStation was like, "Hey, we offer that. Like that. If you guys are worried about the Xbox and you don't like what they're offering as far as online always, we have a solution." And it quietly, they've gone and changed that.
Yeah,
this is the bait and switch that they did, and kind of sank the Xbox One, and it's kind of carried his baggage over to the Xbox Series as well. To your question, I say yes, that should definitely be a part of it. I think, realistically speaking, the games are built way different these days. These levels, the amount of detail, things like that, are just too large for the most part to store on physical devices. This is why
that's true.
Downloads come in parts. And I think, again, I totally agree with you. I think we need to acknowledge that, make devices with larger capacity. A terabyte should be minimum, and that there should be parts of the single player game that are downloaded specifically to the device, so that you, to your point, can access those if they need to be offline. That's the thinking that should be going forward. I totally agree with that. It may feel retro because we're so used to being online most of the time, 80% of the time being online and connected, that it doesn't really bother us. But to your point, when it does, it's big, it's huge. And it happens more often than not in the U.S., especially in rural and middle parts of America. And I'm sure the same is can be expanded to international users in Canada and Europe and Japan and things like that. So yes, definitely should be offered. I just want to make note before we wrap this story up that it was such a big deal that Sony stock took a hit. Krispy Kreme even got in on it. I think they were posting on X that Friday evening, hey, I think, quote, all gamers, this is a PlayStation. This PlayStation still works, meaning they were offering displaced gamers free glazed donuts to basically say, hey, not only have we been hearing concerns, they're a donut shop, but we've been hearing concerns. Here's our solution since Sony's not offering you guys one. GameStop jumped in and started dragging Sony forward with the quote, I think on X as well, saying, bet y'all want physical copies now. Because everyone's kind of
I saw that
one. GameStop. I think some Reddit users were also talking about they're off to buy their Steam Deck. This isn't like the normal PlayStation. Xbox outage where it's Xbox has been down for a couple hours. Let's get a couple quick memes off of it. But when you have other businesses getting, and they have nothing to do with the gaming community, Krispy Kreme acknowledging it's pretty big. And when it affects your stock, that's even bigger. And I think, again, it's all because of the lack of communication. Had they come out within the first 18 hours, because I think this lasted well over 20 hours. But if they come out sometime in between the 18 hours and said, hey, we're experiencing issues. We're sorry that you guys are experiencing them with us. We were working to fix this as quickly as possible. It probably would have blew over because people would have known what's going on. They could have had a word of mouth to each other. I would have hopped on and been like, you know what, David? 6 hours ago, Sony said that they're working on it. I don't know if they're still working on it, but we at least know. Versus you and I waking up the next morning going, you still off? Yeah, I'm still off. I have no idea what's going on. So, Sony, you got to speak up.
I'll even throw one more thing in there because, you've got little kids. I have nieces and nephews. How many parents, I'm going to go really negative here for just a minute. How many parents went and bought a new PlayStation or thought their PlayStation was broken because there was no obvious communications? I think we're kind of assuming too that the people that buy these consoles, we're not all technical.
Mhm.
Parents buy these things for their kids. Parents don't know to go look at the PlayStation status page or go look at X or go look at Facebook. I think at minimum, there should be a way to get a message to your subscribers. SMS would have been the way to do that, because I'm sure, and I know you do for an Xbox account, you give that SMS number to Xbox. I'm sure you give it to PlayStation. So how many people thought their Xbox was or their PlayStation was dead and went and bought new ones on Saturday?
I'm sure there's at least a couple anecdotal stories. I'm sure we can
Yeah,
find if we
yeah.
search far enough. With that being said, though, we're going to segue to our next story, which is also another story of yours. If you weren't burned by the outage and you're still excited to play Sony games, we do have the PlayStation State of Play highlights. And what is that? What is that showing people?
I tell you what, I was surprised, and I'm going to throw out one of our favorite sites, IGN.
Mhm.
I would encourage people to actually go to IGN and read what some of their writers wrote, what their tweets or posts were, because that's was kind of my inspiration for writing this. Even after I saw the state of play, because I walked away with the same feeling that they did. Like, this was not a Sony conference or a Sony presentation in the way that you were thinking, because guess what? Xbox may make more first-party games for the PlayStation this year than Sony.
What?
Because what we're seeing is, I'm going to back up a second. Phil Spencer, play everywhere. We've discussed it. Play everywhere, play on anything. We've talked about the licensing deals with Call of Duty and what had to be done there to make sure everybody got their share. Well, this stuff is really going into fruition. For example, the Metal Gear Solid game that a lot of people like, it's usually heavy on the Sony side of things. Xbox gets it this year. PC gets it this year. And if you keep scrolling down that list of games, over 90% of those games are Xbox as well, are Windows as well. So we've kind of talked about it here on the pod several times, and I'm going to bring it up maybe one last time. We've not heard from Microsoft what the next Xbox is going to be. We're seeing the Sony state of play mention that titles are coming to other platforms. Do we want another console? Probably. Do we need another console? I'm not so sure. Are we finally seeing the full acknowledgement of produce titles, let people play where they want? We'll keep waiting for that Xbox gaming store that was supposed to be in here almost a year ago now. But it puzzled me as I walked away from that it wasn't, look at this Sony exclusive. The big Sony exclusive that I remember was Gran Turismo. You wanted to play Gran Turismo, you went and bought the PlayStation. Or the MLB The Show. That was one of my favorites. If you wanted to play MLB The Show, you went and bought PlayStation. Well, Gran Turismo's not made it to Xbox yet. Who knows if they're making another Gran Turismo. MLB The Show has been on Xbox for a few years now. So that was one that Sony kind of brought this way. But now we're seeing it go both ways, all platforms. I think we're entering a place of transition to where developers will make games, publishers will publish them, And there's going to be licensing agreements that Sony gets it, Microsoft gets it, and handheld versions or PC versions or whatever there needs to be, there will be one of those as well. And I'm happy to be here for this.
Yeah, I mean, to let out a little air in your balloon, because
okay, deflate me just a little bit.
I'm a curmudgeon on Valentine's Day. I think a lot of this is Microsoft and Sony wanting to control the narrative early on in 2025 for gaming. And this is all part of planned marketing where they get out the console shared news before they hit you in the summer with things that will get you to go out and get a subscription for Game Pass or go buy a PlayStation console, the exclusives, the stuff that we see later in the year, as they measure how Grand Theft Auto is going to work in this whole scheme of gaming. Like, this is the stuff that this is the low-hanging fruit saying, all right, these are the things that we can make news early in January and February that don't have a huge effect on our bottom line and how we need to make money going forward versus, like I said, maybe in the summer we start to see, hey, here's the new, I think it's the Wolverine game, I suppose, from the same makers of Spider-Man. I'm sure that's going to be something that they show off in the summer to say, hey, you need to go out and buy the next PlayStation console because you're not going to get this on Xbox, not anytime soon. It may eventually show up a year later, but this is why you want to get a PlayStation 5 now. And I think that's kind of what they're doing versus like in the summer or in the fall when they want to sell consoles, they're not going to come out again with more of these and say, all right, here's even more shared games. No, they're getting the shared game stuff out early, get that out of the way. Appease those gamers saying like, hey, you can play anywhere you want because this is low stakes. Some of our older games that were going to be timed exclusives anyway because we don't own the license to them exclusively. But we do have stuff in the tank that's going to be like, hey, this is why you want Game Pass subscription. This is why you want a specific Xbox console. This is why you want the Nintendo Switch 2. So that's what I meant about a little air in your balloon. Not that you're wrong. There is a change in the fact that we're getting more cross-platform gaming when it comes to PC being the middle ground for that. And maybe these PC handhelds are the reason why, because they can also see, instead of cutting yourself off to just console exclusive revenue, you can now get a second stream of revenue through the PC. And PlayStation sees this; they're not dumb. Sony sees like, hey, there's more money to be made for PC gamers as well. It could be from the same person specifically. Maybe they just want to be mobile, so they have an Asus, they have the Lenovo Legion Go, they have a Steam Deck of some sort, and instead of just tying them to the console where we only get the $160 lump sum from them, maybe they'll pay $30 to have it on PC and $60 to have it on the console because they want to do both from both areas. There's just money laying about for us to do that. So that's where I see that. But I do acknowledge and mark note that Sony is becoming a little more cooperative when it comes to at least having their games on more platforms.
And for me, it's an everybody wins.
Yeah,
sure.
End of the day,
it's kind of like going to your Ford dealership or your Chevy dealership. In the corner, they've always got the other brands. Whether it be trade-ins or sister brands or whatever. But like you said, they've always got the exclusive new Ford Camaro or a Ford Mustang or Ford truck or Chevy truck out front. That is their exclusive.
Well, and it's all new cars to you anyway.
It is. It's all new cars. And, maybe eventually we see that Sony and Microsoft don't make these hardware consoles anymore. And Lenovo, Dell, and Acer and Asus make some, and we worry about software.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to Ubering everywhere, but to drag on an analogy. With that being said, we're going to move into something that's a little less fun, depending on who you are. This is Microsoft giving up on HoloLens, pretty much outright. Without explicitly saying that it's done, Microsoft has basically dumped its contract over onto a company called Anduril, and Anduril. I butchered that horribly. But this basically lends that it puts an end to a 5-year long saga between the U.S. Army and Microsoft on a project called the Integrated Visual Augmented System, the IVAS, where Microsoft won a bid to be the AR company to help advanced Army tactical units and outfit them with these new HoloLens equipped or HoloLens powered AR goggles, basically, they were going to use in the field. It was a project worth $22 billion if everything went well. Practically nothing went well for this project. Microsoft came in over budget with devices that made the testees nauseous, gave them headaches, disoriented them. They had to figure out ways to make the devices lighter, more weather proof, more prone or more ready for combat. And they've also kind of hit some stumbling grounds when it came to Congress allocating money for this project. A lot of them kept saying, we don't see the return on investment just yet. And Microsoft had to foot the bill for a lot of this development before they were even granted any actual paychecks. Because again, this contract was for a potential of $22 billion. This wasn't, hey, you signed here and here's your money. It was like, you prove yourself over the next 10 years, this is how much you could make. And so for a lot of the development, Microsoft is just saying like, hey, we'll eat this cost in order to get this contract. I think they were down $440 million before they even saw any money coming back their way. And, they kind of fought with, Congress and the purse strings to get even that funding. Either way, with that being said, over the course of these 5 years of Microsoft working with the Army, there was also just a stagnant development in HoloLens technology to begin with the software and the hardware. People who were fans of the HoloLens were expecting a HoloLens 3. Microsoft gave up on that project, gutted the division, kept it at a skeleton crew in order to work on this IVS project, but basically said, hey, we're done with mixed reality. We jumped into the fray early. We had a promising vision, but, our execution we stumbled on. And so we're going to kind of do what we do best, go to commercial, sell this $3,500 headset to businesses who can make use of it fully, and leave it there. We'll be a very lean operation. Well, it looks like that lean operation is now over. What are your thoughts on Microsoft saying, hey, here, other company, you take our, cursed project and we're going to step back? And I say that with the caveat that Apple seems to be wanting to come into the space. And I think, was it Samsung or Google? Google, one of the two, just introduced a new headset. Samsung, I think
it was the new Samsung XR headset that's coming. Correct. Because that's something we're getting ready to talk about with Google I/O. Yes. I think the HoloLens in some ways might have been a little bit before its time, meaning that it was good for the Army. The Army was the main group that was talked about using it, was the military, and there was a lot of evidence that the military had used it, but you didn't see a whole lot of other things that it was being used for, or because it was being used, advancements were being made. And I don't want to say this, I'm not sure enough businesses could get to it. And what I mean by that is it had a $3,500 price tag. It was a VR AR headset that had all these features, but for the average person, even me as a journalist, I was never clear on exactly everything this headset was capable of. I felt like that message was where it failed, or one of the places that it failed in the beginning was the message of what it was capable of. Because by the time I picked up the headset in covering it and started, learning about it, we were talking about the Army. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's great. I'm glad that, our military is getting use out of it, but you're going to need to sell that to other people to make money. And ultimately, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is part of, again, I wrote it in my piece, in addition to this information, this is a trend that Microsoft has where they leap out ahead of something with a vision and then they don't nail the execution. They give up on it. They don't want to do the hard work of making a case for it after its initial, like, hey, wouldn't this be cool? They did this with the Zoom, it followed the iPad, the iPod. It had, I think, arguably had much better software even though it wasn't a
Yes.
mainstream device, but it had much better software, and the idea of the software was great. They did this also with tablets. They had tablets before iPads, but they couldn't figure out how to make Windows good on these tablets. And so they stumbled on that, and then the iPad showed up and said, "Hey, you know what? We have this phone operating system. We're going to transport to our our tablet because it's already touch authorized and friendly. We're just gonna make it bigger," and it worked out of the gate for them. Microsoft basically kind of gave up on that. They tried with a sputter with Windows 8, and that didn't work out. And we've never heard about combining uh, features for touch really since Windows 10. It kind of just died off. They've done this with the Courier, which eventually became the Surface Duo. We see foldables are now in hot contention. Samsung's kind of losing its edge, even though it was kind of the lead in that for at least 4 years. Now we get Oppo's coming out with stuff, and the OnePlus has got something that's great, and the Pixel Fold 2 seems to be doing, or Fold Pro 9X, whatever it's called, seems to be doing pretty well. So there was a market for it. Microsoft came out with its idea. People said they didn't like it, and Microsoft gave up on it instead of refining it and making it better. I think this is the same thing for HoloLens. Windows mixed reality, as far as the operating system, this is part of the reason why we don't understand what it could do, because we never understood what Windows mixed reality could do. We didn't know these things, which people could customize or make stuff their own. Now, obviously, people who were using it from the medical field, who were using it in warehouses, who were using it for architecture, construction, all these kind of things, they have their own, proprietary systems built into these things. But what could Windows mixed reality do for people who, like you and I, who want to pick it up and figure out things about it? We didn't know what it could do because Microsoft really kind of gave up on the project. They ended Windows mixed reality development last year, the year before last, before they even gave up on the full hardware project of HoloLens. So this is part and parcel for Microsoft coming out with something cool, not explaining it well, and then not trying to fix that afterwards. They're just saying, if you don't like it, fine, we give up. And so I feel like, again, there's going to be a space for this. And I'm going to be upset when we find out that, Google took over the project or Samsung took over the project, even though they're working with Microsoft. I think it's the last bit of mixed reality development Microsoft's even doing is some unknown project that was announced 2 years ago with Samsung. So we'll see if that ever comes to fruition. But this will go in the books as another project that Microsoft gives up on that someone will make useful.
And I think, you made me remember something, and you may remember this too. You remember back right when the HoloLens came out that Microsoft did the consumer VR, or they attempted to do the consumer VR, but what they did was, if you remember, they didn't make a consumer VR headset. They made the software to plug into Windows, for the experience. And Lenovo made a headset, Dell made a headset, Samsung made a headset, HP made a headset. And I used a few of those headsets because I'm a sim racer. I wanted to pick those up and see which one was. And one of the things where Microsoft failed was there was no consistency between those headsets. It kind of felt like the VR AR experience. Like you said, Microsoft says, okay, dartboard there. Okay, y'all have at it. That's what you got. And they never went back and improved it. They never went back and said, hey, we're going to do this. It was kind of like, okay, we did it. But like you said, we're not done with AR and VR. We're just kind of in a lull, I think. Somebody's going to pick this up and run with it, because I have seen that Meta Quest for the new Quest 3 and 3S, they've got a cool feature with Windows where you can add monitors and add desktops to your virtual environment, just like you're sitting in front of your PC. Now, I don't expect Meta to go far with this because that's not what they do. But I do expect, like you said, Google or Samsung to pick this up and go, look, here's your full operating system in VR, and polish it out and make it affordable. Apple, okay, I get it. I get what you're trying to do with the Vision headset, but I feel like the Vision headset is also another HoloLens. Until they can't come out with something that consumers can use, I don't think it'll ever sell, but I think Google may pick it up, and I think they're going to talk about it at Google I/O, and it's going to be
Yeah.
very interesting to see where they go with that.
Speaking of which, how about you segue us into that story?
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to do there, my friend.
Nice, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, I'm trying, folks. We got Google I/O is coming in May, and before we get too deep into this, last week we talked about Microsoft Build. Guess what? Coming in May, and for some reason we have the same dates: May 19th through the May 22nd.
Awkward.
Yeah, it's awkward. The conferences overlap here, and I don't know if, and I'll let you give your opinion here in just a second, my friend, but I don't know if it's on purpose or what we're trying to do here, but it's in Mountain View, California. You can watch the events online, or you can go to the Shoreline Amphitheatre. You can get on Google's website, which is in our post, and you can register for the event. Everything will be available online, which is probably a good thing if you're wanting to go to the Microsoft conference as well. We are expecting Google to announce Android 16, and we're hoping for an announcement of the Google XR, like we were just discussing, the XR headset, and give that platform a good kickoff and kind of see where we can go with that. We're probably also going to see that AI push with new Gemini features. We got some new Gemini features announced yesterday with Recall. Kind of interesting that that's what it's called. But I'm expecting it to be AI heavy, first of all. And the Google XR headset may be secondary, but I'm going to let my friend jump in here. Why did they put Microsoft and Google together like that? Why are developers having to choose? Why are they not getting two vacations?
I got two takes on this. The first one is a business one. I think they are seeing the rise in the cost of living affecting the developer signups for both companies. I don't know if they both agreed to this, but at least one of them seems to be, and I'm assuming this is Google, developer conscious for this. Microsoft always tends to be the one out of the gate first. If you've seen it historically, the developer conference is Microsoft, sometime between late April, like the last week of April, and the first couple weeks of May, which then leaves Google the middle of May to the beginning of June, and leaves Apple the beginning of June. And then after that, you had like Eater and some stuff like that. I think we're seeing developers not being able to get the vacations for both, not being approved to go to both conferences. So they're already having to choose between, I develop for Google, I develop for Microsoft, or I develop for both, but I can't go to both. And if with this access of making stuff online, which you've been doing over the past couple of years since COVID, they're probably seeing people opt to be like, you know what, I am going to choose to maybe go to the Google one and watch the Microsoft one online and attend their conferences online, or I'm going to go to the Microsoft one and I've spent all my money first thing in May. Now I have to just wait and get all of the lessons, the sessions, and things like that from Google, from the website, the developers conference website, and stuff like that, and get the information there and work, within my realms for that. So now what they're saying is like, all right, if we can't get people to go to our actual location, what's the point of even changing the dates? They can go to both. They can be at Microsoft and watch ours, or vice versa. They could be at our conference and watch the Microsoft one. It doesn't really matter what day it's on, because everything's online. They go to all the sessions during the day. When they get home back to the hotel room or whatever, they can watch the other stuff at night. And that's my business aspect. The competitive aspect of it, though, is making them choose. Do you, where are you going to spend your money at? Where are you going to spend your time? Between Microsoft and Google, we're both shooting for AI. We want to see who are our Gemini developers and who are our Copilot developers. And they're making a pitch for that. They're all leaving, ironically, Apple alone to itself. Whenever they decide to do it in late June or whatever. And again, this is not an accident. Definitely not an accident. This isn't coincidence. Microsoft already announced when Build was. And these things, they require vendors. They require collaboration with contractors and partners to put on the event, how to stream it, timing has to be correct. So they knew when they announced that, hey, this is the same time as Microsoft's, we're doing this at the same time. Now, again, I wonder if they're confident now in their AI to be like, hey, you guys came out with Copilot before, so you wanted to make us dance. Now we're dancing and we feel like we're leading. We're confident that more people will come to our developer conference and want to see what we're doing with Gemini than with Copilot now, because you guys have been stagnant when it comes to development. We have a lot of cool things to come out and say about ours. We don't feel like you guys have the same. What are your thoughts on it?
That may very well be true, and that would be a great way to see AI compete. And if that is what Google's thinking, I hate to say it, but I kind of agree. I know we're Microsoft centric, but Google has really been rolling those features out really hard and heavy in the last 6 months, extending back to the end of last year. Now, I will share something with our watchers and listeners that I have noticed in the last couple of days. Gemini does have its issues. The integration with Google Workspace and what they claim that it will do with spreadsheets results to, sorry, there was an error, please try again later. So, there's that to work on. And to be fair, in the Excel worksheets, they just added Google Copilot to the Microsoft Office subscriptions for consumers. Mine just showed up in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And depending on what you ask Copilot in a spreadsheet, it'll just sit there and never give you a response. And you will have to.
You can't be wrong if you never respond.
You'll have to, word that response a little differently, and it'll finally do what you ask it to do. But I think there's a bigger question to be asked. Microsoft has focused on putting Copilot on the PC and in the Office infrastructure, 365 and enterprise. They've done that. Google has a lot of places they can put Google Gemini. They have Workspace. They have the search engine. They have YouTube. They have the ability to create AI videos, which was they kind of showed off a little bit this week. So I have an idea who's going to win this, and it's not the one that's the name of our site, because I think
spoiler alert, jeez.
I think the consumer uses Google. The consumer. I saw a post this week. The YouTube hours are, for the first time, have passed television hours. Mm-hmm. So people are watching YouTube more than they're watching standard television now. So what does that tell you? There's going to be that AI icon down there. People are going to check this out. Microsoft doesn't have that service that I think a lot of people use, all different shapes and sizes of life, that they use every day, to where, yes, I'm going to check out Copilot, but people are going to be checking out Gemini.
Well, I think it's what was the movie that had the I want to say it was Godzilla. It was a Godzilla movie that had a tagline that like, they fight, we lose, or something like that, no matter what. And I feel like that's going to be us. We are going to be the civilians in the buildings as Godzilla and Mothra fight and crash into stuff. Like, no matter who wins this AI war, we still all lose at the end of the day, because these things are here, kid you not, to replace us. Replace a lot of the functionality that we served as people amongst each other, the services we provided one another, the conversations, the information, the flow of communication that we had amongst each other is being replaced by AI. Again, for better or for worse. I'm not trying to make a moral judgment on its presence, but that's how we all lose at the end of the day. But to your point, yes, Microsoft has fewer places, but this may be why we're about to get into our next story. Another segue. And this is to our last story about Microsoft giving more voice capabilities to Copilot. I think they're realizing just like with I think what was it, the Google or Galaxy AI, which is based on Gemini for the most part. That there's a lot that they can do with voice assistants, and I think they're trying to keep up with this because it's one thing to type out a prompt and have it be very specific to your work productivity and functionality, but when it becomes your voice assistant, you take it along with you to more places. Yeah, Microsoft doesn't have a phone, but they do have a Copilot app, and they can be put on your phone. And if you're used to using this voice assistant to do stuff on your PC, you're more than likely to be like, let me bring my assistant on my phone. Let me find that same app that's on my Windows PC and put it on my phone or on my Galaxy tablet or my Pixel tablet, or let me see if I can find it somewhere on my TV. Maybe I don't have a Google. What is the new streamer thing called? Google's TV, whatever they streaming box is now called, no longer Chromecast. Maybe I don't have that, but maybe my Samsung TV has built-in Copilot capabilities. And guess what? All I have to do is add my Microsoft account, and now it goes from Windows PCs to my TV, into my viewing experience. Maybe I use Copilot somehow in gaming. Tell me some of these stats, or pull up some videos for people beating this specific level that I'm on when they're using this specific character, because I've been stuck for 2 days. That's when they can start to use this, expand it more outside. But they have to start with it being something you want to use, and I think this is where they're going with it. I have some disagreements with it, but I'm going to let you jump in about getting more voice assistant stuff in Copilot.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think we're going to see that integration into Xbox. I know it's been talked about. Phil Spencer has mentioned wanting to put AI in games. And that may be where they get to some of the consumer stuff. You may start seeing it come to your TVs to where it knows what show you're watching. I think we kind of went through some of this with Apple on the Apple TV a few years ago with one of the releases they put out, where they claimed it would know what show you were watching and would put the characters at the bottom. And I know Amazon does some of that now with some of their add-ins for the Amazon Prime streaming service. I think they call it X-Ray. That's what they call it, where you can hit the button on your remote and it will show you a little segment of, John Travolta did this in 1982 or whatever. But Microsoft has got to do what Google is doing. They've got to get it out in front of people. They've got to get it on the devices. They've got to get it on the things that people use every day. And I'm going to throw it in there. David got a new phone this week after 7-8 years of using the same phone. And one of the things that I had to learn about this phone had to do with Google Gemini, because my old phone was so old that you held down the home button and it would give you Gemini. On the S25, the Samsung Galaxy S25, for those that don't know, the power button, or the traditional power button, let me say it that way, out of the box is not the power button. It is the Gemini button. That is exactly what it is. To turn the phone off, you have to hit the volume down and the Gemini button. So that, what to me was kind of like another step of Google may come out on top. They've made it easy. And I can tell you, folks, use my phone, tap the power button, ask a question, get what I need. It's synced in my Google account. Wait a minute, you've got my attention, because it's on this. I pick it up every day. There is no unlock, find Copilot, tap the button. So Microsoft's add-ins are great. Adding more abilities to it are even better. But I think the stumbling block is getting it in front of people.
Well, to that point, they've added a total of 40 languages now supported. I think when they first started, it was Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK and the US. But now with additions, they'll have Arabic, Bengali, German, Spanish, French, Hindi, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Dutch, Portuguese, or Urdu, URDU, and Chinese. I again butchered that. I apologize. In addition to adding more languages, you'll get real-time voice capabilities for real-time traffic, weather, I believe your agenda. You also get voice responses to a myriad of prompts that can obviously be strung together. So if you're saying, hey, where's the nearest theater that's showing this movie at around 4 o'clock, that's also near a food courtyard, you'll now get a voice response to that strings all that information together to make it more companion like. But what I want to say is that I see this as a negative because again, it's Valentine's Day, so why not be negative, right? This reminds me of Cortana, and we saw where Cortana went. I don't necessarily know people want to speak or hear back from their assistant. They want it to do stuff. They don't want it to be a friend. As lonely as much as we have a loneliness epidemic in this world, I don't think there's a rush to have that loneliness replaced by computers or AI or digital assistants. I think people they want to have their computer do an action and do it faster than they can do it themselves. And that's it. So the fact that you can ask for these kind of things and have it speak back to you, maybe if you're driving, that's useful. But I mean, when you're out and about, having your phone yell back at you, you rarely do people want to hear the volume from their own phone unless they're listening to music, maybe. It is rare that they're saying, oh, let me talk out in public and then have my phone talk back to me out in public. So this is why I think Cortana didn't work very well. Why Siri doesn't get, is always the butt end of jokes. Why Google Assistant is only used for specific instances. Because again, we want to limit our interactions with these machines and devices to that extent. So the fact that everyone's rushing towards the voice capabilities reminds me of that cycle of here's the voice assistant again. And I don't think that's the usefulness of AI to its larger development.
Well, let me ask you this. I saw the Samsung Galaxy promotional commercial for the S25 and the Galaxy AI, and they had the lady. I'm not going to set anybody's assistants off here, but schedule the appointment and text this to Steve or Casey or whoever, and then they pop to the screen of it's doing it, and she looks like she's in an airport, with people around. And, the first thing that I saw was airport talking to phone like that. Who's going to do that, number one, in the middle of an airport? And in the middle of a busy airport, how well is it going to pick up what you said and actually do it? Most people, like to your comment, are going to still pick up that phone, type it in. I've said it on many podcasts, and I'm going to say it one more time. You've got to find a way to break people's habits. We did this. We went from the standard phone. Then the big thing was your phone had a keyboard, an actual keyboard, a physical keyboard. Then we showed people that it made sense to go from keyboard to touch screen. We broke that habit. So we've got to find out what's going to break the habit to get people to communicate with these. I almost said it. I almost said assistants there. To get people to communicate with these AI systems to do things for them, because we've got Copilot PCs. I've got it at the touch of a button, but sometimes I still find myself doing the task myself because it's quicker, it's more efficient than opening the app, telling it what to do, making sure it understood me, and then making sure it carried out the task the way I intended the task to carry it out. By the time I've gone through that process, I've done it myself, closed my laptop, put my phone down, and carried on. These AI bots, language models, work best when it's something I don't know. And it can tell me what I don't know. And then I can ask it more questions on what I don't know. But that is taking the assistant the way Microsoft appears to be intending it to be out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. we'll leave that as an open discussion because I'm sure we'll come back to it as we, more people get hands on their new devices throughout this year, where they'll be, pushing more of these voice assistants. We'll probably see more from the developers conferences, and maybe they'll show us something that we're like, hey, you know what, that actually does make more sense to have a voice assistant do that, to have that kind of back and forth interaction. But as of right now, this just reminds me of the cycle of Copilot versus Google Assistant versus Siri versus Alexa, and we've seen again, Amazon's had to redo all of how they're going to do Alexa going forward. Microsoft's given up on Cortana. Google Assistant's been relegated to, again, menial tasks that are voice assisted, but for the most part, searching maps, searching Google, and these are all text prompts, or at least prompts that don't require conversation back and forth. Siri, again, has become the butt of jokes. People ask it out of spite or to, invoke a joking manner. Like, these things weren't taken seriously the first way around. And I don't think it's because of lack of information. I think it's because of the nature of the interactions, beyond the fact that, like, it's always, hey, I didn't understand what you were saying, or I can't get you that information. One of the two of those combinations, it just, never caught on. Maybe it'll catch on again, but I don't see that happening. But with that being said, if people have a difference of opinion and they want to yell at you about it online, where could they go do that?
Yell all you want, and I tell you what, I'll even engage in a keyboard war with you. David PAJ 1978, jump over there to Blue Sky. That's where I prefer you find me. Blue Sky, maybe a little bit of Threads. David PAJ 1978. I have mentioned X Twitter platform, same thing, David PAJ 1978, but I'm kind of fading away over there. So kind of like fading away like HoloLens. So how about
nice bird. If you guys want to,
go to Blue Sky. Go to Blue Sky.
If you guys want to see me retweet sick burns like that, you can follow me at here we go, Happy Hulk, Blue Sky. That's where I do most, if not all, of my commentary now these days. I've abandoned X completely. I mean, I think I still have an account over there, but I am not responding to it. You can also find me at Kareem Anderson on Threads. Again, rarely on that one, or Instagram, which I don't converse very much. But if you want to see some cool photos or something, we can share those back and forth. But again, Blue Sky is where I'm at if you want to talk. You can also visit us on our website, MicrosoftUnboxed.com. Leave a comment in any of the posts that David and I are constantly writing about. Well, again, we expect to have more news for you guys throughout the week. So if you want to see more coverage or details about any of the stories that we talked about, go please visit the site. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and the other likes for stories as well, not just commentary. We hope you guys have a great weekend. Oh, before we leave, we wanted to see what are you getting into this weekend? What is Jerry playing, watching?
What am I getting into? Well, I'm gonna see if I can get our Twitch channel set up, Microsoft Unboxed. I'll mention that on the site and make sure I get that in next week's pod if I get all that set up. And if I get that set up, I'm probably just going to do some good old-fashioned Call of Duty, kind of blow some things up, blow off some steam a little bit. Been a tough week. I'm still looking at handhelds. I really want a handheld. We're kind of waiting to see what reviews will be.
We have no problem promoting other websites and podcasts, things like that, because, hey, we're all in this together. Those of you who want an early review of Lenovo Legion's new handheld, Windows Central just dropped theirs. They don't seem to be overly impressed with it, but it's an early take. I'm sure we'll be getting more, and we'll be having ours once we get our hands on one. So to your point, David, if you want to go check out and see what this new breed of handheld, the second generation of handhelds, has in store, go check out that review on Windows Central.
Now, when you're done fussing at PlayStation this weekend about last weekend, making up for lost time, what are you playing?
Me,
I play.
Yeah, I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain. I am a dad. I have two little girls, 7 and 8, and I'm with them this weekend alone. My wife has had work to do up in Orlando, so I will be playing the Switch. We'll probably be playing the Mario Party Jamboree. We'll probably be playing some Minecraft, stuff of that nature is what I'll be preoccupied with. And maybe when they go to sleep, I can sneak off and go play some Starfield because they did update it. I need to update my systems in order to play it, but I do want to try. And I think they have a rover you can now use so I don't need to walk around the planet for 3 hours on end. So I'm looking forward to that. So a mixture of, kids games during the day and a little Starfield at night.
That sounds like a good weekend. You can kind of get.
I think so. You got chocolate and you got gaming. You can't go wrong with this weekend. We hope you all have a great weekend and that you have fun gaming. The other thing, we might go watch a movie. Might go try and see Sonic 3. Haven't been able to go see that in theaters yet, but maybe I can drag the girls to go see that.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Just don't buy any eggs.
I mean, I couldn't if I wanted to, not here in the U.S. If you guys, that's another thing. Maybe we'll get a GoFundMe and you guys can send us some eggs through the GoFundMe.
There you go.
Good night. Goodbye, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe and be kind to each other. We'll see you guys next week with more Microsoft news.
See you next week.